Hello. In this video, we're going to be focusing on central ideas and details. Once again, what we're going to do is start off with the tips we need to do to understand for this kind of question. So firstly, the first tip you need to know is identifying the main ideas as soon as possible. So if you can understand what the central idea is, you'll see that the text mainly revolves around it. And based on that, you'll be able to understand the answers and what the question is asking you more clearly. Secondly, you want to look for details in sentences. So you want to explore why certain details are given. If you can understand why they're given, they can either be really good details that help you with your answer, or they can be distracting details. Which brings us to the next point of eliminating distracting details whenever possible. It might be a bit difficult to do at first, but if you're able to highlight the more important information, it'll prevent you from getting distracted by unnecessary stuff. When you're answering these kinds of questions, it's also important to consider ask yourself this question: how details connect to the main idea. If they don't really, if they aren't immediately obvious to you, you might have to probe a little bit deeper. But otherwise, if you're able to clearly see how the details connect to the main idea, then that generally means you're on the right track with this kind of question. And tip number five is going to be process of elimination. With this question, it's going to be very useful to you, especially with the distracting details. If you find any details that are distracting or otherwise unnecessary, if you're able to rule them out, then you should definitely use that as a resource for you. So, let's look at practice problem number one. Let's see here. When fashion designer Lloyd Henry Cavanaugh opened his store in Scottsdale, Arizona in 1945, he quickly became known for creating delicately crafted leather goods like belts and hats. He was perhaps most renowned for his colorful handbags, which he made by hand using a long and painstaking process. As he gained more customers, New began using sewing machines and other tools to help him produce bags more efficiently, though he continued to handcraft the crucial details that made each bag unique. So, based on the text, what would be the most likely consequence if he didn't begin using sewing techniques? Based on this, he said that more efficiently is that's what happened with the bad production. It's becoming more efficient because he's using the sewing machines and other tools. So, based on that detail about efficiency, if he A wouldn't really make sense because doing them by hand is what gives them the handcrafted unique details. C doesn't make sense either with A, with the new sewing machines. And D, not being able to generate much interest is also not really true. B is the only one that really makes sense here because this is what talks about efficiency and meeting the demand of the goods. Because if you're not efficient, you won't really be able to meet that demand. Now, let's look at practice problem number two. What I want you to do with this one is pause, figure this one out on your own, and then I'm going to walk you through it. Okay, the correct answer for this one is D. Now, this can be seen towards the beginning of the thing, of the text. It tells us that the eldest daughter, whose advice was so effectual, possessed a strength of understanding and coolness of judgment, which qualified her, though only 19, to be the counselor of her mother. See how it's giving her her age and the position she's in, how she's giving counseling to her mother because of her strength of understanding and coolness of judgment. In towards the end of the text, it says that it was a knowledge to which her mother had yet to learn, and which one of her sisters had resolved never to be taught. Because of this, it implies that Eleanor is remarkably mature for her age, which best fits with the characterization they're putting Eleanor through by making her more mature, understanding, and rational than even those older than her. Now, try pausing this one out. Try this one on your own. If you selected A, you have the right answer because it tells us that the impact of photography on the portrait miniature might be overstated. So this tells us that the records show a decrease in the amount of portrait miniatures before the invention of photography. Because of this, we're able to determine that factors other than the rise of photography may have been more directly responsible for the portrait miniature's decline. So that's what we see here in answer A. None of the other options really reflect upon that. Practice problem number 4. Again, pause and try this one out. The correct answer is D. Now, why is this the correct answer? This one is correct because it is telling us the main idea of the text as accurately as possible, more accurately than the others. According to the text, Jins and Arka have designed the apartment building that is disorienting because of the unconventional elements, such as uneven kitchen counter and a door to nowhere. So it tells us that there may be benefits to this design because filmmaker Yamaoka lived in the apartment building for 4 years and reported health benefits. This means that even though it's not really practical design, it may improve the well-being of the building's residents. In the example given about Yamaoka, it talked about improving their health. So that's why D is going to be the best option for you. Now we have a more challenging problem with number 5. Again, try this one out on your own. Okay, the correct answer to this one is C. Why is this the correct answer? Now, we can see that the text says the production's use of large winding space, it has a very specific effect on the audience. Because the space itself is so important to creating the effect, it would be very difficult to reproduce the production in a different space because of space is what gives us the effect. So because of that, C is what really focuses on the option because it's difficult to reproduce in a different theatrical space because it's of the particular performance environment. Now for the last problem about practicing today in this video. Choice, try to figure this one out on your own before I tell you the answer. Choice C is the right answer. Now, why is this? This is because it most accurately describes why the finding about the microorganism is important because of community composition. It tells us that the experiment by Ava and her team, where they collected plant soil cores at one elevation and transported them to sites at lower elevation with a warmer average air temperature. Now, based on the observations they found that the microorganism mediated nutrient cycling, it was faster in the transplanted cores, and that, quote, crucially, microorganism community composition was unchanged. And that meant that the team was allowed to attribute the acceleration to changes in the microorganism activity brought about by the change in temperature. What would this mean under normal circumstances is that the team wouldn't have been able to make the attribution otherwise. So that means that a change in the composition represented another possible explanation for the acceleration that still needed to be ruled out. So because of that, because of the ruling out part, we arrive at C in comparison to the other ones. Thank you all for watching today's video. I appreciate it. Make sure to check out the other content that helps you with your digital reading and writing SAT journey.